Hello, I'm Deborah Holt, and this program is Lifestreams. I hope you'll make yourself comfortable and sit back and relax and join me because we're going to take a journey through the book of Genesis and just really break down some of the exciting things that we can learn from the Word of God. You know, God has so much to say to us. He really, really loves us, and He has so much to say to us. So get your Bible, or if you want to just follow along with me without a Bible, you can do that. I'm going to read straight from the Bible, so you'll get it straight. And get yourself a drink and get comfortable. Well, we're on chapter 18 today in the book of Genesis, and so I'm just going to read for a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit, and then we'll read, and then we'll talk. Chapter 18, And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat at the tent door in the heat of the day. Now, get this picture. He came to Mamre to speak to Abraham. We're still talking about Abraham and Sarah. And he came and stood with him in the heat of the day, so it was probably in the afternoon or so. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door. And he bowed himself toward the ground and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. He recognized these visitors were from the Lord. And he said, don't pass me by. He wanted in. He knew if God is doing something, it's exciting, and he didn't want to miss it. He wanted in on the action. So he's saying, don't pass me by. And he called himself a servant. Notice the humility here. He says, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. So he was not only acknowledging them, but acknowledging them from a point of humility, his self, humility in himself. So, verse 4, Let a little water, I pray, you be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. So he's saying, come on, get comfortable. Of course, they're going to stay longer if you treat them good, and that's wisdom. So he's saying, let me get a little water and wash your feet and let you get comfortable here and just lay in the grass under this tree in the shade. And I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, and therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do as thou hast said. So that's their way of saying, okay, this sounds good to us. Let's do this thing. So verse 6, And Abraham hastened to the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, and knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. So he's letting her know, hey, let's whip up something for them to have for a snack and feed them along their journey. And Abraham ran into the herd and fetched a calf, tender and good, and gave it unto the young man, and he hastened to dress it. So they got the help here involved also. And one of the servants, or the young men in part of his family maybe, we don't know, and hastened to dress it. So they were going to fix this meat up the way, basically kill a calf and eat it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. So he got this all fixed, and then he served it to them under the tree and gave them refreshment and strength for their journey as they would be leaving after they were through there. And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. So he's saying, I'm going to return according to the time of life, which is about 9-10 months. Most women carry about 9 months. Some women carry almost 10. I always carried almost 10. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. So he's saying, about a year from now or a little less, you're going to have a son through Sarah. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which she was behind, which was behind him. And now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So basically, she's old enough. She's already left and exited the childbearing season. So it's not even feasibly possible for her to bear children at this point. That would take an out and out miracle at this point. She no longer has her cycles. Therefore, Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And so she laughed like, this is a joke. Are you saying that we're going to have a kid when I'm ancient here and I'm not even in that cycle of life where you can conceive, and look at you, Abraham, you're old. You think, this is going to take place? And she laughed. And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of surety bear a child which I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? So he's saying, hey, is anything too hard for me, the Lord? So at that time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. So she knew these were angels, or the Lord himself, was probably the Lord himself and two angels. And she knew that this was a God thing, and she knew that this was serious business. And so she didn't want to admit that she laughed. Now, if you remember, I don't know if you've been following along with us, but you remember a couple chapters back when Abraham heard this, he laughed too, because this isn't the second visitation. The first visitation. And this is the second time it's been spoken of. And God promised him that he would have a son and that it would be his seed. And so he's heard this before, and Abraham laughed before. But he admitted his. Sarah denied it, saying, I laughed not, because she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh. And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. So Abraham says, I'll escort them a little bit of the ways down the road. He's probably not going to go all the way with them on their journey, but he decided he would walk them out probably to the end of his land or something. And but the difference in the two is here that Abraham could admit that he laughed, and Sarah has a little more pride there, or maybe more fear. It says she was afraid. So I would say probably fear. Fear is a really, really big obstacle. I don't know about you, but fear is one of the largest things that I have had to overcome. We have all different kinds of fear. We have fear that we're inadequate. We have fear that, the enemy is too strong. We have fear of the giants in the land. Yesterday I was driving and I was listening to a song, and it was a really neat, upbeat song on Christian radio. And it talks about fight the giants. Yes, they're big. Yes, they're strong, but fight the giants. And, David, he took on a big giant that was far, far greater than him. And he fought that giant in faith. He said, I've killed the lion and I've killed the bear, and you uncircumcised Philistine, you're going down today. And little bitty David, he was only probably about 14 at that point. He was still a very young man. And he knew that this big, huge giant was defying his God. And that's the righteous reason to press on, is because of God. You can't do these hard, difficult things for people. People are fickle. Some of my biggest fans in my early days are now not even supportive. You can't hold people to the grind. People come and go in and out of your life. Some friends you will always have. I have some wonderfully, wonderfully old friends that are not older than me. They're about my age, but they're old friends in the sense that we've been friends for a long, long time. And I have a pillow at home, and it just sits on the couch, and it says, it takes a long time to make old friends. So even old friends sometimes will let you down. But people do come and go out of your life, and everything is seasonal. They may be in your life for a season, and then God may take them to another city, or they may disappoint you and just quit believing in you. I've had some people that, just seems like they quit believing in me somewhere along the path and didn't want to really stay close to me like I wanted to. I wanted to stay really close, but they didn't for whatever reason. So you have to let them go. Sometimes you have to love people enough to let them go and honor their wishes and honor their boundaries. And so some dear friends you have to love from a distance. And but anyway, the truth is Sarah laughed and then denied that she laughed. And God blesses us when we tell the truth, even if it's ugly. I always told my kids, I don't care how ugly the situation is, own it. Own the situation. I don't care how ugly it is, own it. I don't care if it's a mess, a pile of mess in the middle of the floor. If it's yours, if you drug it out, you clean it up. Whatever it is. Maybe you messed up in some area. So maybe there's some of you there that have messed up in certain areas, and you need to know that you can go on. You can go on. Life will go on, and God is gracious. God's mercy. Does he let us suffer consequences? Yes, he does. But guess what? He'll hold your hand through those consequences. He will hold your hand through those consequences. So don't be afraid. That song says, don't be afraid, just fight the giants. And, we have to just be able to press on and not walk in fear, which is what Sarah was walking in. Sarah was operating in a lot of fear. Fear that God would not fulfill this promise for her. You can trust today that God will fulfill his promises. One way or another, he knows how to get us where we need to go. One way or another, he will fulfill his promises. So, the men rose up, and Abraham escorted them to the end of the property or wherever. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, and the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. It's really important to God that we impress on our children to continue on in God's ways. It's the natural bent of human beings to stray. We all, like sheep, have gone astray, the word says. It is our natural nature in the flesh to go astray. And so, but God is really, really impressed with those who walk in faith. He's really impressed with us when we continue to believe when it looks impossible. When it looks like there's no hope and you continue to have faith. Now that's what impresses God. When you walk in faith, when everything around you looks dark, when everything around you looks black. When I have faith in those times, God rallies around me and strengthens me and lifts me up, and he lets me know, hey, not a girl, good girl. He knows when it's hard for us. He knows when it's hard for us. So whatever hard things you're walking through, just continue to have faith. Continue to trust God. Continue to trust God, not that they're going to come out the way you want, but continue to trust God that he is going to be with me. No matter where I go, no matter what I do, no matter what kinds of things break down and fall apart, God is with me. Others may fall away. It says you'll see, 1,000 fall at this side and 10,000 at this side, but that harm will not come near you. And so we get our feelings hurt. Sure we do, but hurt is not harm. There's a difference in hurt and harm. God says he will walk with us and he will take care of us all the way to the end of our journey. Now even the end may not be the same way that you think it would, but even to the end of our journey, the Bible says, that they loved not their lives unto death. And so all of us are terminal. All of us are terminal. Unless the rapture happens, during our lifetime, we're all terminal. So we're all headed to either heaven or hell. And we get to choose. That's the cool thing, is we get to choose. But we are all terminal, There There's no one who gets to escape that. It's there, and we get to choose where we're going to spend eternity. But anyway, God was impressed that he knew Abraham would live for God and inspire his children to live for God. And so that was a huge deal, that he would command his household after him to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken of him. And the Lord said, because of the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me. And if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence, and went toward Sodom, and Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? He's saying, are you going to destroy that whole city and destroy the righteous people too? He just couldn't hardly live with that. Abraham couldn't live with that. I really don't want to see that happen. Would you not save at least the righteous people from that city? So verse 24 says, peradventure, if there is 50 righteous within the city, wilt thou destroy not and spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? He's saying, can you just spare 50? If there's 50 righteous, if I can find 50 righteous, would you at least spare them? That be far from thee to do this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? He's saying, that's just a far cry from what I see as right. Surely you're the Lord of all the earth. Surely you're going to do right and be fair. Well, God is fair. God's fair and he's just. The thing is, he knows a lot of stuff we don't know. Okay? He knows a lot of stuff we don't know. But he is fair and he is just. And we have to believe that he's fair and just. And there are times when things have happened to me in my lifetime that I didn't like, and they were difficult. I've lost my father, I've lost a niece, and sometimes you see those things and they just don't seem right. But somehow God knows better than I. And even my dad, he was 3 years shy of 70. The Bible says, that we're to live to 70 to 80 with trouble. So if you want to go beyond 70, you're probably going to have some aches and pains. But, our lifespan is 70. Well, my dad was only 3 years short of that. But on his deathbed, he was able to tell me, hey, honey, I'm going to go meet my Lord. And I've had a good life. And I've done more in 67 years than most people will ever do in 80 years. And he had. He had done a lot of amazing things. And he'd been to pretty much all 50 states and traveled, and he went into churches and taught on health and nutrition. And back in his day, he was with a Melody Masters Quartet group that won second place at the Gospel Quartet Convention, with Elvis Presley watching from backstage. And when they came off, he shook their hand and told them what a good job they did, and they ended up getting second place. Back then it was in Memphis. It wasn't, where it is now. I think it's in Louisville, Kentucky now, but it was in Memphis, Tennessee back then. So my father, he didn't live quite to 70, and I don't understand all that, but God understands. And I understand that he did a lot more in 67 years than some people will do in 70. The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sake. So he says, okay, you got a deal. If I can find 50 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, I'll spare the whole city. So he went to examine the city. Abraham answered and said, behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which I am but dust and ashes. Peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50, wilt thou destroy this city for the lack of 5? So now he's bargaining. Abraham's bargaining now. He says, okay, I know I'm but dust here. I know I'm just, dust and dirt, made from, dust and dirt. But are you going to go ahead and destroy all of them just because I lacked 5 people? So like if I get 45, is that good? So he's plea bargaining now and adjusting the amount. So and spake unto him yet again, and said, Peradventure there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. And he said unto him, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold, now I have taken upon me to speak to the Lord. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there. So now he's just kind of whittling on down the pole. What about 30? What about 20? How about 20? Can you save it for 20? And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. And he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak peradventure yet but this once. So let me speak just one more time. Okay, I promise I'm just going to go one more time here. And don't be angry, but I'm going to push this envelope just a little bit farther one more time. And he said, Will thou not destroy it for 10's sake? And he said, And I will not destroy it for 10's sake. So he gave his divine word that he would not destroy it if he could find 10 people. And the Lord went his way, and as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. So they made this deal. If I can find 10 righteous people, then I won't destroy the city. Well, we kind of know where the next chapter is going. Most people have heard the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. So you kind of can imagine where the next chapter is going. And we're just going to bounce right into the next chapter since it finishes our story. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, which means at evening. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them. And see, this is why Abraham was so concerned about Sodom and Gomorrah, because Lot was living there. Okay, that was his nephew. And Lot was living there. So he had some personal family members there, and he really didn't want to see them get destroyed. So Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself and his face toward the ground, and he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go your ways. Now, we don't know if one of these was the angel of the Lord, or if he just called him Lord. But there is an angel called the angel of the Lord. So it could have been that angel, or it could have just been 3 angels, and he addressed him as a Lord, because they would even call men, my Lord, back then in that day. Behold, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go your way. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. So he's deciding, hey, I'm going to feed them a meal. They're going to hang out with me. That's awesome. I'm going to feed them. I'm going to take care of them. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round about, both old and young, all the people from every quarter, compassed the house round. They just said it like that. But they were round about the house. So both old and young, all the people from every quarter, and they called unto Lot and said, Where are the men which came to thee this night? Bring them out to us, that we may know them. So this city had so much perversion in it, so much lasciviousness, crudeness, perversion, that they were like, hey, we can see the innocence on these men. Drag them out here and let us, have our way with them. That's how perverse the city was. And Lot went out the door and said to them, and shut the door after him, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold now, I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out, and you do to them in what is good in your eyes. Only these men do nothing. So he's saying, I got daughters that aren't married. If you're looking for someone, I have daughters. Why would you go after these angels? And he's trying to protect what is God's. Do I understand that? No, my brain does not understand why he would offer his daughters. I don't think I would have offered anything. I would have not offered anything. But apparently, his judgment was beginning to be compromised. I think that's my personal opinion, that when you live in Sodom and Gomorrah, it isn't going to be very long, and then your judgment is going to be compromised. Because the Bible says in Proverbs, if you hang with an angry man, you too will find yourself angry. So if you hang with people that are angry, you're gonna pick it up. That spirit transfers. You know, the enemy has a way of carrying those thoughts over to you, and the next thing you know, you're not thinking it's so bad to say this or do this. So I think that Lot's judgment was even affected, you know, by living in the city. So only these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. Part of it, too, is he's knowing I'm accountable for what happens to them. They're living in my household. I am accountable for what happens to them. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot. So now they said, okay, you want to stand in the way, buddy? Oh, no problem. We'll just drag you out here in the streets and beat the tar out of you and do whatever else is sick and ill. And they came to break the door down and take Lot. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house. So these angels grabbed a hold of Lot and pulled Lot into the house. So see, God had a deliverance for Lot. God had brought deliverance for Lot. These angels were coming in the name of the Lord. And you know what? Abraham went to bat for his family. And so we have covering. We have covering. God supplies godly covering. Your circle of influence, you will have people that come into your path that God has covered you with prayer. And it's like an umbrella. If I care about you, then I'm going to provide an umbrella of prayer covering for you. And you'll see Christians do that. Christians do that for one another. They cover one another with prayer. And there's a lot of people that are under my influence. Do I own them? No. Are they my slaves? No. Are they my kids? No. Now, your immediate family, yes, your immediate family you can cover with prayer. But you can actually take others. You can actually take others and say, you know what? I care about them. I'm going to actually pray over them and pray a covering over them. It's called intercession. You intercede. You stand in the gap. You play the role of that umbrella. Well, we're going to have to finish this chapter next week because I'm running out of time. But I want to ask you today, this is a season of alignment. Who are you aligned with? Who do you have covenant with? And when I say covenant, I don't mean you had to cut yourself and become blood brothers or anything like that. I'm not talking that kind. I'm just saying, who have you made a covenant with that I'm going to be your friend and I want you to be my friend, that is a good, strong prayer warrior? Because we all need good, strong prayer warriors. So align yourself with good, strong Christians. Have someone that prays for you. Well, we're really down to a very last minute here, so we're about out of time. But today, maybe you've never found a few prayer covering people, or maybe you've never even started your journey with the Lord. Well, you know, it's super, super easy. You just simply have to confess that Jesus is who he says he is, the Son of God. You have to admit that you have lived a life that wasn't perfect, that you missed the mark and have imperfections and wrong decisions that you've made. And then you have to believe that Jesus' death on the cross is for you. You have to choose for it to be for you. People say, I'm a believer. Well, the devil, he's a believer. He knows that Jesus is the Son of God. He believes that. You got to believe for yourself. You got to say, I'm taking that faith of Jesus and I'm believing that Jesus paid for me too, not just everybody else, for me. And from this day forward, I'm going to walk with Jesus and I'm going to let him be my guide and let him be Lord of my life. Well, if you haven't ever done that before, I suggest you do it right now. Just open your heart up and invite him in and walk with him for the rest of your life. And we all can live with him eternally in heaven. It's that simple. Well, I look forward to the next time we meet again. So we got some exciting things coming up. at Lifestreams in June. We'll talk more about that next week, but keep some dates open in June. The 20th and the 24th keep open in June, and the 25th too, if you can. So, well, God bless you, and until next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.